What's up, guys? What's going on? I'm Paul. This is Pauline Theology's Daily Devo, and we are diving deep into Genesis chapter 4, 17 through 24. Now, we are on the lineage of Cain. We have seen a little bit of what he's done, and now we're going to continue to see what happens afterwards. How Cain was marked with God's blessing, yet he was cursed because of his sin. And now we're going to see what happens. Like, what's going on, man? What is taking place after this Cain series? We've seen Adam and Eve. We've seen Cain and Abel. And now we're going to finish seeing more of the progeny of Adam. And a little spoiler on the seed of Satan's side. Yeah, this is crazy. We're getting a little bit of that prophetic words that was in chapter 3 that we saw God speak to the serpent. And we're seeing a little bit of it played out now. But yeah, if you haven't checked it out yet, go ahead and stop the tape, read 4:17 through 24, and then come back and we'll answer the 4 questions. If you've already read, let's wait no further. Let's jump into it. What is the author saying to the audience in its original context, and how do we take that? He says here, and Cain knew his wife, and she got pregnant and born a son named Enoch. And then it came to pass, he built a city, and he named the city after his son Enoch. And Enoch bore Irad. Enoch bore Irad. I lost my place, sorry. And Irad bore Methuselah. Methuselah bore Methuselah. Methusael, and Methusael bore Lamech. And Lamech took for himself 2 wives, the first named Ada and the second named Zillah. And Ada bore him a son named Yuval. And Yuval was the father of all of the dwellers in the tents and those who had livestock. And the name of his brother was, I'm sorry, the first one was not Yuval. I messed that up. I'm sorry. It's Yaval. And then Yuval is his brother. Yaval is the first one. Yuval is the second one. And it says that Yuval was the father of those who played the flute and the lyre. And Zillah also bore him a child, and his name was Tuval Cain. And Tuval Cain was a forger of all types of like plows or instruments made from iron and bronze. And Tuval's sister was Naamah. And then Lamech says to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to my voice, wives. He says, listen to my voice, wives of Lamech. Listen to what I have to say. For a man I killed, for wounding me, and a young man I struck. For 7 times vengeance was for Cain, and Lamech 70 times 7. So what do we got going on here as we read through the scripture? Well, progression of sin is the first thing that comes to mind as we read, is that sin is ever increasing. But we also see blessings, that God is still blessing the Cain despite what he had done. I think it reminds me of when Jesus says that it's called common grace, where it rains on the just and the unjust. And we see that it is raining on the unjust as this line of Cain continues to increase in sin, yet still has things to offer. So we got Cain marrying his wife, hit the warrant. There's a woman. Well, it's probably his sister. We talked a little bit about that in the last episode about how Adam and Eve probably had more children than just Cain and Abel, and then Seth, who we find out later. But the one thing I want to hit back on that is that I also thought that it's not just maybe at that time those kids, but maybe Cain also was thinking in the future that people, as he lived a long life, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people before Noah lived a long life, years. And so as the children were begot by Adam and Eve, and then other children by whomever, those people, Cain could have been worried about taking retribution for the death of Abel. Side note, sorry, I meant to say that last time, and I'd been thinking about it all day, and so I just decided to go and throw that in there for you, just to give you a little extra, because I said two things, I only gave one thing. But anyway, let's get back to it. So Cain got married and had a kid named Enoch, and then he built a city. So we talked about wandering. He said he settled in the city of Nod. Well, that wandering city, I think maybe this right here, not only is he a person of wandering, anywhere he goes, it is wandering, but it looks like he may have defied God here. The words of God. This is a difficult thing to attest to, because he is building a city for settlement. Even though in the Hebrew it is a little ambiguous to say, because there's actually no noun there. He is not the one, it's he. And the he, actually the closest antecedent to that is Enoch himself. And so it could be Enoch just built a city, and he named it after his son. But I don't think a lot of people think that, but that could be the case. So in one way, it could be that way, but another way, it could just be Cain denying. See, I said sin is increasing is the first thing to say, is that not only did Cain just murder, but now he's outright in defiance of the punishment of God. Sin just ever increases. But anyway, we go on, we see a couple more names, but then we come to this character here, Lamech. And this is where sin is increased even further, because first off, he takes two wives. This is the first instance of polygamy in the scriptures. And though it doesn't outright condemn it, God doesn't come down from heaven and say, let us look at this man and say he has had two wives and that's not good. But it does show, because of the fact that Cain's line is the one that increases in sin, and Lamech is the seventh, which is a perfect number, a number of completion. And it seems like that the greatness of sin is seen in the sins of Lamech, as he is a murderer, and it seems like his not just murder, but a lust for blood, because he says, "Man, I struck a man for killing me. I even struck a young man or a child for, and I will strike him down too." So it's just the increasing of sin in Cain's genealogy, and that this increase of sin is seen as the height in the person of Lamech. And so because its height is in the person of Lamech, we also see he has two wives. And that is clearly against what Genesis 1 said, a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, not wives. So, we see an increase in sin in that regard and in that respect. And it's blatant, because not only does he say he's going to do it or has done it, it's a little bit ambiguous there as well, but it is the fact that he's singing a song about it. He's rejoicing in it. And what God provided as grace for Cain, then Lamech takes this and either corrupts that grace by trying to say God is going to do that for him, or boast of the fact that he doesn't need this grace. He can take care of himself. Not only does he murder, not only does he create polygamy, but he also blasphemes God by saying that he doesn't need help from God, but he can do these things on his own. Sin is ever increasing. But what can we see, or what can we see through these scriptures? What can we see? That God first is gracious, man. And I say that because I didn't mention it, but it talked about the sons of Cain, some of his grandsons, and how they started all these things. One of them was the creator music. You know, they sat down and started jamming together. Another one was the creation of tools to be able to use and to produce fruit from the ground. And then also we have some that do livestock. And when we say livestock, it's not like Abel where he just had sheep, maybe small cattle, but this one's like mass production. So it's really the idea that even from sin, even from the genealogy of this one who is corrupt and evil, who's murderer, and then we see it epitomized in his great, great, great grandson, that still things come good. God's grace still abounds upon them, that it rains on the just and the unjust because of this evolution of civilization that occurs through the people of Cain. And as I said earlier about alluding to the son of Satan, we see the son of the serpents and the seed. And it seems like the seed won of the serpent as he crushed Abel. Even in the scriptures, it says that it was like a brutal murder, not just some act of murder, but a brutal murder is the word that it used in the Greek when John talks about it in 1 John. And so even from this, God allows good things to come. He's gracious. What do we see about man? Well, we see that sin is ever increasing when we are out of relationship with God. When we don't seek God, when we are not calling upon his name, nothing can happen but the increase of sin. Sin abounds. But also see that in this, that man needs to raise their children, like the family. The mother needs to rear her sons and daughters in the admonition of the Lord. Family is important. And I think another thing we see about mankind is that, great innovation comes. Love and tenderness comes. So don't get it twisted to think that just because they don't know God, that they don't have some side of wisdom, some intelligence or character about them, that even though sin increases, that they still have the capacity for morality and to do good things. Because that's, like I said, that's the grace of God being poured out on them. That they, as those who are not in Christ, mankind as a whole, sinful sinners and saints, both have the capacity to do great things. And we see it in like Rome and Plato and all of these things in the world that we have men and women doing amazing things, using their brains to show us some amazing things. So know that this happens and that everything that comes from the world is not bad. It's because God is the ultimate ruler and controller of all these things, and his grace abounds. And how do we apply these truths to our lives? Well, I think we should be building a relationship with Christ, that we should be studying his word to know who he is, that we should be praying to convey our hearts to him as he molds them through prayer. And then finally, fellowship of believers so that we stay on the correct path, to know that we are reading, studying, praying, and understanding God in the way that he desires to be understood. I think that's important because without God, sin increases. And we don't want sin to increase in our lives. And then second, man, raise your kids to call upon the name of the Lord. Raise your kids to call upon the name of the Lord. And you'll understand that call upon the name of the Lord in the next episode. So I appreciate you guys for listening. And I will see you in that next episode as we continue to study through Genesis.